My name is Cwm Ivy. It's my job to look after Cwm Ivy Marsh and the new salt marsh restoration project we've got here at Cwm Ivy on North Gower. The wall behind me is the ancient sea defence at Cwm Ivy, which has kept the sea out for hundreds of years. This time last year, in August 2014, there was a breach in the sea wall. The tide came rushing in, and we had no idea what was going to happen to what was previously freshwater marsh behind the wall. It's a fantastic thing to be here when the tide is coming in at Cwm Ivy. You just watch it creep in over the marsh outside the wall, and it just snakes along and it gradually fills up the basin of Cwm Ivy, and it just like a bath, and it just comes rushing through the wall. It sounds like a steam train. It's just incredible. And then it reaches a point where it's just complete stillness. The tide is just at equilibrium, and it's the most incredible peace comes over the place. There's just nothing moving. The water is still and calm. You can see the reflections of the clouds. It's a really beautiful moment. And then that piece is just slowly, it starts to go back out, the tide, and it's like someone's pulled out the bath plug, and it just speeds up and up until it's roaring again, just right back the other way. Now, after the sea had come in sort of 2 or 3 times, the whole place looked absolutely appalling, and that was the really scary time for us as land managers, because we had this site and it was just a sea of dead things and mud everywhere. We knew it was the point of no return. All we could do was sit back and wait to see what would happen next. So this footage was shot on one of the highest tides of this year, and as you can see, it's very dramatic when it comes right in and fills up the basin, and then just goes back out again. It's a real privilege to be able to see it speeded up like this. So now we're just 1 year on, and things are really looking up. It's incredible out there. So why don't you come and have a look with me? Just 4 months after the tide came in for the first time, we had the first of the salt marsh seedlings popping up, and there was just a carpet of them everywhere. It turned the marsh bright green for a time, and now, as you can see, they're getting really established, and we've got a huge array of salt marsh species here. This one here is glasswort. These were the first of the salt marsh species to arrive. They're lovely, these lovely fleshy plants, very, very characteristic salt marsh species, and also edible when they're much younger. This one here is called sea spurry. We've got 2 species of spurry here, and as you can see, it's the most gorgeous little delicate plant. It's got these lovely pale pink sort of starlight flowers, really gorgeous. And this one has got lovely mature seed heads, which are already dropping the seeds for next year's salt marsh annuals, which is just really lovely to see. It's just amazing to think that this area where I'm sitting now, just over a year ago, was a really dull habitat. It was very species poor. It was basically just a field, and now, as you can see, it's just so rich in species. It's just amazing what nature can do. So this mat of green algae you can see here is really important for the development of the salt marsh. This is an algae called Debesia, and as you can see, it's got a very spongy growth pattern, and it forms these little pockets in its surface. And what happened is the tide comes in, it drops the salt marsh seeds in there. They just lodge in the pockets and they take root, which is just amazing. And you find the salt marsh annuals, they can really grow up. It's like a little plant nursery. So here we've got some wonderful marks left in the mud. These have been left by feeding shoals of grey mullet that have come in, and they literally rasp off with their mouths the surface layer of algae, and they leave these marks in the silt. So they're coming in on the high tide, feeding, and then they'll go back out again with the tide. So it's fabulous to know that they're here, and this is operating as a proper salt marsh. It's really exciting. Something really exciting that's happened just in the last few months is that we've had 2 separate sightings of ospreys flying over Cwm Ivy, and what we've done is actually installed a nesting platform complete with fake nest, complete with fake bird poo on it in an attempt to try and attract them here. So what we're hoping is that some young adults from further north will perhaps pass here on their way back to Africa, may just stop here again next year or the year after and set up home, and perhaps we'll have our own ospreys here at Cwm Ivy, which would just be amazing. But along with the osprey platform this year, we're also installing two new bird hides. We've got one already which faces out over the lower end of the marsh, and from there we've already been able to see a wealth of birds. This year, for the first time ever in living memory, we've actually had lapwing nesting here on Cwm Ivy Marsh. We've had at least 4 pairs, and they've actually raised chicks successfully, which is really wonderful for us. And then the second bird hide, which will be completed later in the year, that's purely going to be there just to watch the ospreys when they come. So as well as the lapwing here, we've also got little egret, we've seen water rail, kingfisher we get, which are lovely, and hen harrier, of course, which are a very rare bird of prey. They've been sighted numerous times. It's not just very rich in bird life here, we've actually got a vast array of wildlife. Because we've actually got these mixtures of habitat in a small space, there's actually a very wide range, a large number of niches for animals to occupy. So we've got a wide range of reptiles, grass snakes, common lizards, mammals are very abundant. We have a lot of otter activity on the site. Invertebrates, it's really rich in dragonflies, which might surprise some people. It's not the usual thing you'd find on a salt marsh, but because it's bordered by this freshwater fringe, you've just got this wealth of animals. So this is one of the really regular sprinting sites for otters on the marsh. I know that when I come to this tree I am going to find otter spraint, and sure enough here it is, and it's got this wonderful sort of sweet fishy smell. It's not awful, it's not that bad. So in collaboration with Swansea University and with the help of our wonderful team of volunteers, we've been collecting the spraint and we're analysing the prey contents so that we can find out more about what the otters, what they're eating, what they're doing. So yeah, it's a really exciting project for us all. This is a wonderful vantage point on the marsh, and we're close to the back of the marsh now, near Cwm Ivy Tor, and as you can see on my left, we've got what is clearly salt marsh, where there was just a dull old field last year, and to the right we've got Phragmites reed beds. We've got huge reed beds which have just come out of nowhere, which is wonderful for wildlife. We really hope we may even get bittern, things like bearded tits and water voles, which would be great. They are in other parts of Gower, so why not here? Our coastline is changing very rapidly at the moment. The change is inevitable, and we really need to embrace that change, and that's exactly what we've been doing here at Cwm Ivy. We've just allowed nature to come in and just naturally restore the coastal habitat that would originally have been here, and we've had to do very little. Our role is very much one of monitoring the change, and we hope to use this site as a prime example of what can be achieved at other similar locations up and down the coastline. When you take this approach of minimal intervention, it can be really scary. It actually takes a lot of courage to take that approach, to just sort of sit back and see what happens. But if you can see it through and just overcome the obstacles that will come, then the rewards will just be incredible, because nature really, really does know best at the end of the day.